Hi, everybody. It's Paul. I want to invite you to a new initiative of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership, and that's our new podcast, the Inland Empire Working Together, sponsored by U.S. Bank. The purpose of the podcast is to introduce you to people who are working to make sure that we have a strong economy and jobs in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. So I invite you to join us. Our first guest is going to be Lowell King of Goodwill, and it'll be a good conversation. And I guarantee you're going to learn about Lowell, the work of Goodwill, and the work he's doing to strengthen the workforce of our region. Please join us. I'm your host, Paul Granillo. I'm the president and CEO of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership. And today I am happy that our inaugural guest is none other than Lowell King with Goodwill. And today, Lowell's going to be our guinea pig as we begin this process of talking about work. So, Lowell, welcome.
Thank you, Paul. When we initiated this idea, I don't know if I signed up to be the guinea pig, but I'm excited to get this rolling.
Good, Lowell. Let me start here. What was your first job?
My first job. Oh gosh, my first job was with a retailer, national retailer, um, the Kinney Shoe Corporation. So I started them in high school. And I think the term is not appropriate now. I was a stock boy. Stocking the shelves and getting things rolling. And the funny thing, when I started that, I just, it was a job to put gas in my car and get, allow me to go out on Fridays and have a good time. But the more I engaged with the company, the more I enjoyed it. So after I graduated, I continued through school to work with the Kinney Shoe Corporation. After I graduated, I started with them full time, and eventually worked my up, had my own store, was a manager trainer, ran multiple units, and eventually was what they called a corporate recruiter. So I was with them for about 10 or 11 years.
Wow. So, kind of from high school into college and then beyond that.
Exactly. I had no idea that that was my career. That's what I wanted to do. I just enjoyed it.
Yeah. No, that's great. So, Lowell, let's start talking about the region and then work our way to Goodwill and what your work is in the region. So, California's Inland Empire on its way to be a region of 5 million people, one of the largest in the country. And this issue of jobs and the economy, uh, it is really one of the toughest regions to have to balance out so many different competing interests. And in California, we have the interests of employment, we have the interests of the environment, we have the interests of social equity. And so we always have to look at issues and try and keep all of those in balance. So you've been in the region a long time. You've been working in this space of providing jobs to people that often struggle to get a job. Uh, when I say California's Inland Empire, what what do you want to tell the people watching about the IE?
I commonly refer to this as God's country. This is, early on in my career, about 20 years ago, my desire was to run my own Goodwill. There's 150 Goodwills nationwide. Um, and I went through Goodwill International's executive development program. It's a 2-year MBA type of program to prepare me for that. But a funny thing happened. I fell in love with this region. I fell in love with the people. There is not another region our size where everybody's accessible. Everybody really wants to help each other. Everybody has a desire. It has a desire to make this a wonderful place to live, work, and play. And this is coming from the nonprofit guy, right? There's nobody I can't pick up the phone and will call me back. That doesn't happen anywhere else. So it's just a terrific region. I mean, you got the mountains, you got the desert. You have there's nothing this region doesn't have.
So, Lowell, tell us a little bit about Goodwill.
Well, Goodwill's mission is to provide job training and play. Everybody knows Goodwill. They know our retail stores. They probably our shoppers or donate to Goodwill, which we greatly appreciate. But the mission of Goodwill is transforming lives through the power of work. We provide job training and placement opportunities for individuals with the most barriers to employment. This includes individuals with disabilities, at-risk youth, our veterans, those formerly incarcerated or justice involved, and individuals experience homelessness. And we do that quite well. I mean, we'll help anybody that needs our assistance, but those are the folks we really want to help. From ever since the inception of Goodwill, and our Goodwill Southern California was the fourth Goodwill founded in North America. We were the first Goodwill started by a woman. We just had a strong belief as everybody has value, and given the opportunity, everybody can contribute. And we've held that for over 100 years. We've held that belief for over 100 years. There is no greater, I've had the opportunity to work with Goodwill for 30, this is my 31st year, and I still get chills when I hear about somebody that we've helped, somebody that is now going from, you know, say they were incarcerated for 30 years, comes to come to our program and is now working. I mean, there's a tremendous value in a job. If you think about it, other than your family and your faith, your job is the most important thing in your life. And it's not a matter of always the money you make or the things it provides. It's what it provides. It provides you with self-esteem. It allows opportunities for you and your family. So there's really nothing greater than a job.
So, Lowell, tell us about the founding of Goodwill.
Well, Goodwill was founded in 1902 by Reverend Helms. He was a Methodist minister in Boston who had the very poorest parish in Boston. And one cold winter's day, he was speaking to his parishioners, and he noticed everybody was in tattered, blankets and shoes and jackets and whatnot. At the end of the sermon, he had an idea. As in today, this poor parish bordered a very wealthy parish. So he said, well, "What if I just collected their discards and gave them out to our parishioners?" So it started very simply. He got coffee sacks, collected all the discards of the wealthy, brought them to his parish, put them in the back of the room, and at the end of the sermon, he told folks, "We have clothes back there, jackets, shoes. Please help yourself." And nobody moved. So he said it again. And a gentleman in the back raised his hand and said, "Reverend, I'd like to give you a nickel for a jacket." And it dawned on him that people don't want a hand out, they need a hand up. So that's really what created our social enterprise, our retail stores. He would collect products, he would repair the products, sell them in our stores. The money generated would pay for their salaries as well as other programs. Reverend Helms was an amazing man. He doesn't get credit for us, but he started the first daycare. He back in the turn of the century. This is 1902. A lot of women, single women, had to work. There wasn't a lot of social programs available. So and what they would do is they would lock their children in their rooms while the women went to work. And Dr. Helms said that's not a healthy environment. Bring them to work. So he brought them to work and he created what's called a day nursery. And that was the inception of daycare. He firmly believed that everybody had value. His parish it was about a 2.5 square mile territory, had over 50,000 residences speaking 27 different languages. This was all driven by the influx of immigrants coming in from New York and all over the world. In his parish, they spoke 27 different languages. So getting the word out was difficult, but he always believed in people. He believed that everybody can contribute. Um, Fast forward to 1916, Goodwill Southern California was born. Catherine Higgins was a founder of Goodwill Southern California. She was a transplant from England. She came over here in 1916 and landed in LA and just looked at the deplorable conditions they had in LA. The founding of Goodwill Southern California was actually in Alvaro Street, at the church right there on the corner. And she just saw these conditions that was terrible, and she had an idea. She heard about this thing called Goodwill. Can it work out here? So she convinced her board to give her $200 so she could buy coffee sacks. And she did that. Now the funny thing, about half of those sacks were unrepairable, so she only had 100 sacks to collect. She put these sacks in businesses. She went to the wealthy folks, and that's how Goodwill started out here on Obero Street. Just a fascinating person.
Yeah, I like that story, Lowell, because it talks about two things in this discussion about workforce. And one is that people, right, want a hand up, not a handout, right? And so how we can help them to train up to be able to have a good job and to be able to pay the rent and take care of their families. That's what it's all about. And then I think the other piece there is um, just the social enterprise, right? The sense of we can use the 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 best strategies of business to help our brothers and sisters again with that hand up. So, um, well, let's talk a little bit about what you do at Goodwill.
Well, it depends who you talk to. My title is a regional operations officer for the Inland Empire. The reality is, my job is very unique. One day I'll be working with our workforce team. Next day I'll be working in our operations with our retail team, or working with our safety department. I also oversee the operations of our campus here in San Bernardino. So every day lends itself to a different project, if you will. Um, I have the unique ability throughout my 30 years of running every division within our organization, with the exception of our development team. So I've every day's different. It could be meeting, it could be going on an advocacy trip one day, or sweeping the floors the next. But the biggest thrill I have, I think, is when I'm in my office and I see the individuals that we've helped working, being productive citizens.
So, Lowell, if I said, tell us a story about somebody that Goodwill helped that sticks out in your head, where do you go?
Well, I have a couple. Let me tell you about one. Um, this gentleman was in, we initially we had what's called a work activity program. This is a program that employed up to 65 individuals with developmental disabilities. Um, and each one of them earned a paycheck. Some of them were various, they working anywhere from 10 to, 100% productivity. There was a gentleman there by the name of Dennis. Great guy, um, non-communicative. Really didn't talk much at all. I would say, "Hey, Dennis, how you doing?" He would smile and give me the two-fingered high. And our case managers realized that he had the ability to do more than just work in the work activity program. So when he went to, so he studied to be a forklift operator. So he went through the training and was a forklift operator here in our building. And I would say this thing, "Good morning, Dennis. How you doing?" And he would smile and give me the wave. Never really said, in 10 years, he may have said 3 words to me. Um, and then we had an opening in our retail division, and him and his case manager had a conversation. We're talking, and it really interested him. And one day I get to my office, and he walks in my door, and he goes, "Mr. King, I got a job in retail." I picked myself off the floor. For 10 years, he didn't say a word to me. And he just, that's what the work transformed him. It allowed him an opportunity. Now he's a chatterbox and won't stop talking. Since then, he moved from our retail division, and he's working in our grounds maintenance division. So he's working very independently. He bought his own car. He manages his own schedule. That's one of the stories. Let me share another one if I can, Paul. Mikey. So Mikey started with us right after he exited high school. Um, Very quiet individual. He worked again in our work activity program, but he would talk to me every now and again. And he comes to me one day. He goes, "Mr. King, I want to work in the janitorial program." I said, "All right, Mikey, that's great. You know, it's a little different. You're in a smaller group. You're working a little more independent." Because I know, but I'm really trying to get there, and I'm learning from my case manager. So this goes back and forth for about a month every day. I really want to work in janitorial. I really want to. One day I get to my office. He comes running in my office, says, "Mr. King, I'm working in the janitorial department." Um, and it was just, I mean, the smile and how he lit up the room when he said that was just incredible. Um, about 3 or 4 months later, he comes to me and says, "Mr. King, I want to work in retail." I said, "All right, Mikey, that's going to be a little bit, it's going to be a little bit different because you don't, you know, it's a little different environment. It's not here in the building. It would be outside the building." Because I know. And I said, "You're going to have to learn different skills." He goes, "I know. I'm going to have to learn to take the bus." And every day he would tell me about the challenges he has. And he came in one day and said, "Me and my father are practicing taking the bus." That occurred for about the next 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks. Then he comes flying in my office one day and says, "Mr. King, I took the bus by myself."
Wow.
Now, to you and I, that's not a tremendous accomplishment, but think of that, of an individual that was really comfortable in an environment with a bunch of people that were similar to him, but he's kind of stretching his boundaries and going to an area that's not very comfortable to him. So every day he would tell me that, you know, "I took the bus. I took the bus to work today. I took the bus to the store. And I was all by myself and I did it okay. And I figured out my way." Then one day he comes in my office and, "Mr. King, I got the job." And, and the excitement on his face was just something I'll never, ever forget. And I said, "Mikey, that comes with some challenge." He goes, "I know. I have to, you know, take my break without anybody telling me. I have to go back to work. I need to focus. I have goals I need to hit every day." To this day, Mikey's still with us, and he's one of our best employees. The incredible thing about the individuals, these happen to be two individuals with disabilities, but the incredible thing about the folks we work with, they really appreciate a job. You know, they show up on time. They don't call in sick. They take their lunch, get back from lunch, take their breaks, get back from break, all on time. They're not twiddling on their phone while they're working. They value the job and we value them. Once we transitioned into, like, at our campus here, I think we have 7 or 8 individuals with disabilities working with us here at the campus. Prior to that, our turnover was about 120%, which is not untypical of retail, right? That's pretty typical. Since we brought those folks in, turnover is about 30%. And they're so infectious. If we were ever to if we were ever to make a decision to not go that route, I would have a mutiny. Everybody on our team, whether you have a disability or not, would leave. They just create an environment that is inclusive. They create an environment of joy, and they create an environment that everybody wants to be there every day. So it's a really incredible thing to see.
Yeah. No, those are great stories. Great stories. So, Lowell, you've been involved in this thing called workforce for a long time. You've served on the county workforce board. You've worked with the state board. You've gone to Washington, D.C. To further workforce goals. Um, if you were the king and
I I
could,
am the king, Paul.
you are the king, but the other type of king, and you could make it all work, right? I guess my question is, what's not working? What can we work towards to make the system function better?
So are you talking from a job seeker perspective? You talking from an employer perspective? You talking just globally?
Yeah, from I think if we could get more people jobs, What would you do to make that happen?
Well, I think there's several things. One of the things you hear me talk a lot about is apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. I think those are absolutely essential. Um, this brings people together with diverse backgrounds, provides them hands-on experience, and they're getting paid while doing that. Training is a huge thing. We need to have our businesses and our workforce boards invest in training specific to the needs of our region. We're big in healthcare. We're big on logistics. We need to focus on the manufacturing is another ones we're huge on. We need to focus on that. Community engagement. I think it's important for us to know what's going on outside of our four walls and engage in the community on different boards of different organizations. We need to foster an inclusive environment. Um, have an environment where everybody feels comfortable, right? And dare I say, implement DEI. I think that's huge for our region and for who we are. And one of the things I think we learned about from COVID is from an employee's perspective, have a flexible work environment, right? Um, offer remote work options. I I've been around for quite a while. And we used to brag how hard we work, how many hours we put in a day. The younger generation doesn't want that. They want a balance. They want a work life balance. They want to figure out what's good for them. They want to work for an organization that does good, that promotes and that does good work in the community. And this is across all sectors. This is not necessarily individuals with disabilities or people with barriers. This is just in general. One of the terrific things, as I mentioned early on, one of the things I really enjoy about this region is you could bring people together and have that conversation, and they will show up. So I think those are some of the keys that will really help us moving forward.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about um, the the people that you work with outside of Goodwill on workforce. Are there employers? Is it government people? Who's around the table?
Well, the answer is yes. It takes everybody working together. It takes your businesses. I mean, you wouldn't have jobs without businesses. It takes our government partners to understand what policies are helpful and which policies are perhaps not. It takes our community partners. Again, I'm looking at it from a lens of goodwill. Oftentimes, the individuals we serve may need other supportive types of services, so we need to engage those partners. So it needs to be an all-inclusive table. Once you start excluding folks, then you miss your strength, right? Then your strength kind of goes away.
Okay. So when it comes to Goodwill and dealing with people that may have made some mistakes in their lives, been incarcerated, um, what are what are the challenges that you have to deal with?
Well, a lot of it, sometimes it's educating our employers. We're starting a new what we call a G-force. We used to call it an enclave at our Vance distribution center in Ontario. Um, at their request, this was in. This is, I think, 5 to 6 people with intellectual disabilities that have a job coach there guiding them and directing them. One of the things they requested, and I don't like this word, but this is what they requested, is sensitivity training. So you need to educate employers. You know, there is no greater risk than hiring our individuals as compared to anybody else. They're not catchy. Nothing they have is going to harm your business. And matter of fact, statistics will show you the individuals that we work with. This is across the board, tend to be more productive, tend to show up on time, tend to not get hurt. So there's an education process I think we need to continue to have with some of the employers that we work with, and it doesn't take long. If you're in business, you're in business for the bottom line, right? It doesn't take a long time for them to say this makes sense, and most of the time, what you'll see happens is they'll expand the program. And again, just like I said here, our folks are infectious. So it'll have an effect on all of the other ambassadors, all the other employees they have in their shops.
Okay. And I think as we draw to an end here of this first podcast, you are
Okay.
the chair of the Inland Empire Economic Partnership Workforce Committee. Around that table, again, we have our county partners. We have union participation, the carpenters. We have a lot of our business members. In my time leading IEP, this issue of workforce has never not been at the top, right? So when you lead those meetings and you hear people speak up, what are the common themes?
Well, yeah, the common themes are a skills gap, right? That um, there's a disconnect from what the employer has to what the employer needs. Um, another conversation we constantly have is on transportation. Transportation is a huge issue. We're a big region. If you look at us, San Bernardino Riverside would be the 24th most populated state in the nation, and geographically we're huge, we're monstrous. I think there's a misconception about low wages in certain sectors, right? And we all started somewhere else. When I started, shared the story about me being a stock boy. I started at $3.05 an hour. Not making much more than that now, but I'm certainly making more. So as you progress, the opportunity provides itself. I think pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeships, and I think you need to have those conversations with the kids in high school. And there's actually some advocacy going on, which we could do just that. um, I think employers' expectations sometimes is a challenge. We're in in 5 to 7 years, Paul. We're turning the keys to the kingdom over to Gen Z, right? Us older folks are are gonna retire, and we're gonna be doing other things. I think some of the opportunities we have is strengthen the community college system, strengthen the partnership with the community college systems. We are very, very fortunate as a region that we have San Bernardino Community College District, Riverside Community College District, Norco College. I mean, we have all these folks at the table, right? They're all having the same conversation. Years ago, it was a little different. It was like we educate, you find jobs, or you provide the jobs. Right now, we're understanding the importance of preparing our kids for work while they're in college. Are, we are so very fortunate. Something like this is a national statistic that I just heard last week. Three-quarters of our college graduates learn more in 6 months, first 6 months on the job than they learned in college. 85% of our graduates wish the college better prepared them for work. 87% received better on-the-job training at work than they did under their undergraduate degree. Here, I mean, so we are seeing our universities come together. I mean, Paul, we have a committee that brings the chancellor, Kim Wilcox and Tomas Morales. They chair a committee just on educational attainment, right? And the conversation is always about. It has a portion about what's next, right? So they get their degree, what's in, so they understand they have to prepare, um, have to prepare, have to prepare them for a job. We're also seeing a shift, I believe, from a skills based hiring to an education based hiring, and I think that's a huge role for our community colleges to play. And frankly, again, we're doing it quite well. We are the exception, um, and it takes everybody going and moving in the right direction. Um, and and some of this work needs to be done, especially with the populations we serve. I mean, what is about 31% of our population has a degree? Am I
22%.
accurate? What was that?
22% on baccalaureate degree.
Okay. So that means the vast majority, we have to push higher education, but the vast majority of our folks won't go that route. And we have to understand that. I mean, nationally, 70% of job descriptions require a degree, and nationally, 37% of the population has a degree. That's a problem. So I think we get a little spoiled out here when you talk about who's at the table and who comes together because we understood that. And people leave their egos at the door. And like I said, you'll have Tomas, you'll have Kim, you'll have everybody at the table working together for a common goal to help the individuals they are educating and to help our region. Um, we are ever changing and we need to be nimble.
Yeah, that's true. Lowell, I appreciate the time. I love working with you, man. So, and we need to stay together and do what we need to do in order to keep people employed and with the quality of life that they deserve. So, thanks for everything you do to make the Inland Empire better.
Paul, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything you do at IEP.
All right. Thank you all. We'll see you at the next one.